Hey, this is Dave with Rough Notes Magazine. We're all about helping agents and brokers thrive, and we're impressed with what you're doing. Can we feature you and your team on our front cover?
Doris, tell me the feeling you had when you first heard that your agency was going to be on the cover of Rough Notes magazine.
Wow. I was surprised. First of all, we're not one of the big bad agencies. There's so many larger agencies in the state of New Jersey, movers and shakers who are buying and selling other agencies and that
True.
type of thing. So I just kind of figured that's who they feature, very, very heavy growth agencies. We've been growing very comfortably for a lot of years, but we were surprised. We were honored and surprised.
I think everybody is. You're a little over 200 is all we've really had since the 80s, right? I mean, there's not a lot of you out there. And that doesn't surprise me, though. Dave and all of his crew, I always say Dave, and it doesn't give enough appreciation to all of his crew out there that makes this happen. They really, really do find the gems. There's a lot of gems inside this industry. I love the agents. We all do it differently, but we all seem to grow, seem to give our lives and our families lives that we never thought we would give them. Tell me why would you think, if you were a guesser, what would you say stands out that probably penetrated through the industry and got into Dave's ears and in your eyes to watch you? What would you say that is about your agency?
Probably third generation, which is my daughter. But
Okay.
the fact that we're one of the very few agencies in the country, I'm sure, that were founded by a woman back in actually in the late 40s. She was single.
No.
My mother was single when she started the insurance business.
Wow.
And she was a woman who she went to business school after high school, and she worked for an attorney, and she took care of real estate closings. And while she was doing that, in our neck of the woods, there was a lot of Eastern European immigrants coming in, and a lot of them couldn't speak English. So anyone who was here for quite a while, who could speak English, probably had a good independent agent like us now, had a good policy at a good price. And
she was doing the real estate, so she was getting the homeowners off of it, I assume, and then
it.
probably,
We had to make sure for the closings that they had their homeowners policy in force. So as she's looking at policies, she's seeing the Eastern European people not having great coverage and not having a good price. And a lot of them could not speak English. She was of Polish heritage, but she was third generation Polish, but she could speak it and read it and write it. So she would talk to the people, and she just didn't like that inequity. So she called the state of New Jersey and said, how do I get an insurance license? And
about how old was she around that time?
20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. In 19, what'd you say, 48?
I think it was probably 48 that she started.
48-ish? Holy Smacola.
I saw pictures of signs in their first house with her maiden name, and I found a book that had, a little notebook that had her maiden name, Eleanor A. Roble Insurance. And then her and my dad got married, and he sold real estate, and they formed their own company together, and they combined the insurance and the real estate. And then she taught him insurance, and he became the sales guy.
With so many other women in the same situation of whatever the 1940s was like, right? Only what history has taught me. What was it about your mother that made it possible for her to make it where others didn't even start?
Supportive family, I guess. Her parents were in the coal and oil business. Very, very, they were of that community that is community. My grandfather, people told me stories about my grandfather and my grandmother that if they couldn't afford to buy their oil to heat their home, my grandfather would just say, well, give me a dozen eggs. You have chickens in your backyard, just give me a dozen eggs and we'll call it a day. So my grandparents were comfortable at the time, more than many people, but they were very generous, good Christians. And that's just, they believe that you have to help everybody else. And that's what they taught my mother.
So Doris walks into the business. When's that happen? What's that look like? How messy is that? Did you jump in immediately? Did you take off, come back? Tell us that.
I did take off and come back. I started in the business when I was in high school. I was the person who came home. I walked past the office every day to go home from high school. and I stopped in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I had to clean the bathrooms. That was my job. So, everybody said, when anybody says, you got this great business handed to you, no, I started where I was supposed to start. Then I went to college and I came home and sold real estate. And I sold my first house. I think I was 18 and I made a boatload of money on that commission. More than most of my friends made for the whole summer. I made in one deal. And then I said, who needs college? I'm going to just stay home and sell real estate.
Light bulb went off.
But I sold real estate for a year and then realized I needed to finish college. So I went back to school, got my degree, came back and was selling real estate. And my mother was having some health issues. My mother, by the way, after starting this business and then running it with my dad, she had 7 children.
Oh my goodness!
And the business started in our home. We were all in the bedrooms upstairs, and she was downstairs in the office. And then they moved it outside when she started having too many kids, and we also started having too many clients. There was no room anymore, so they moved it about a mile from the house out onto a main road, and bought an office building and got it going out there. So she was always in the business until she had some health issues. And I was just helping in the administrative, the bookkeeping.
And when about is this? What years are about this?
The early 80s.
Okay.
Early 80s. And so I just basically learned everything about the business. I started taking care of the payroll and all the finances and learning insurance. I started out actually just selling homeowners policies because we have a real estate division. And so every time one of our realtors sold a house, I was the person who called them up and talked to them about trying to be their homeowners agent. And we were probably, my mother started the business for the first 20 some years. We were probably 80% personal, 20% commercial.
Okay.
The 90s came around. Insurance companies started knocking on the door saying, hey, you do a great job for us. We actually make money on your personal lines because you're pretty profitable, but we really need to do more commercial. And so at that point, we just kind of stopped targeting personal and just targeting commercial insurance.
Gotcha.
We pretty much ran for a lot of years with very few producers on the road. We went through a couple producers here and there, had 1 or 2 that worked out pretty good for, 5-6 years. And then we had a parting of the ways, whatever. So pretty much most of our growth in the beginning was my father was the producer. And then I joined and I became the other producer. And most of our business comes from referrals. We didn't do anything fabulous in the way of marketing until now. And we just really, belong to all the different community groups. And everybody just kept referring people. My father would walk in on a Monday morning with somebody's policies, books of a manufacturer, a small manufacturer. And he said, I met this man at a funeral yesterday and he hates his agent. His agent is sending him $10 statements every month for a $10 late fee because he was an agency bill client and somebody didn't take the time to go through their statements and they just kept putting them in envelopes every month. And that year he had paid the whole thing in full, but it was like, 2 days late or whatever. So the system generated a late notice. And these were the kind of customers he'd bring in and he'd say, he's an honest, loyal guy who does want somebody to just actually care about him. So we would just take over the business.
You hear that a lot.
And that was most of our growth. We didn't grow by buying agencies. We really grew mostly organically.
So then in walks, mom has had her illness. She, I assume, passed. Then all of a sudden you've taken over. Did you get any partners or are there any other partners at this point in time?
The actual corporation was real estate and insurance. So my 2 brothers were both partners. The 3 of us actually bought out my father back in 2000.
Gotcha.
We wanted to make him comfortable. He was kind of ready to retire. My mother had already passed and we just bought him out. So that worked out.
And now Jackie comes along, right?
My daughter started out in Hollywood, had a pretty fun career out in LA. And then she worked at St. Jude Foundation.
Okay.
And during that tenure, she had a commute about an hour a day in the Denver area. She helped raising money for St. Jude. And I had asked her to get an insurance license. I said, just get a license. You can stay in Colorado. I can sell all your friends' insurance and I can pay you the commission because, you're licensed, but you got to have a license. So she had gone to get her license and she was loving her job at St. Jude, but it was a long commute to a lot of the events. And then she just decided to donate a kidney to a stranger. So she decided to be an altruistic kidney donor. And with that, she needed a couple weeks off to recover. And St. Jude didn't have anything in their manual for those kind of situations. Basically, she still only had 8 PTO days because she was only there a year and a half.
Whoa.
And
St. Jude.
she asked me what I did for people. I had someone in my office who had later in life, she got diagnosed with MS and needed a lot of extra time off because of trying to get the medication right. So she said, well, what did you do if she needed like 3 extra weeks and she used up all her PTO days? And I said, what do you mean, what did I do? She said, well, what did you do? And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, did you pay her? And I said, of course I paid her. Somebody's sick, you got to take care of them. She was a good employee, and I needed her to be okay because if she was worried about money, her disease would get worse for her.
Well, very good point.
And
very
her quality
good
of life would be bad. So she said, yeah, that's the difference between you and corporate America. She said, I want to come work for you. And
well, let me ask you this then. So what beauty has Jackie brought to the business? You probably made some changes from mom. Where have you seen it progress now to where it is and to where you guys are going?
Well, a couple things happened. She got involved right about the same time that I got introduced to Scott Addis, Beyond Insurance Group.
Yeah, genius, man.
Genius. Was blown away by him. So we found out more, got more involved, and we decided to join his network. And he came in to do like our first training with our group and basically told us, you're kind of already doing everything that I'm going to show you how to do. You just don't have it as a formalized plan. And that was probably everything we did. I flew by the seat of my pants. I had a business plan. I have a mission statement. I have my culture, but nothing was really in writing, checking every year. We were growing. Without trying too hard, we grew every year. We did well. Our companies liked us. I won a lot of trips. I have a lot of good companies who, love that I've been their partner since in the 80s and 90s, and everything worked, but there wasn't a plan. And when Jackie stepped in, that's when the marketing started, just a more formalized plan. And she jumped into Scott Addis's group, Beyond Insurance, like there's no tomorrow.
Wow.
I went up with her on her first big appointment for a larger contractor. I actually flew out to Denver because she was nervous going to present to this contractor. And I think I said about 4 words because I just sat there and watched. And she had Scott, everything she had learned from Scott. It just was, she did it.
Wow.
She was totally professional. She was on top of everything that contractor didn't have. She, reviewed his entire program, explained to him what he had, what he didn't have, why he should have this, why he shouldn't have that. And, it was a slam dunk. And I just walked out of there. I looked at her. I said, I didn't have to fly out here for this appointment. She
just wanted to see mom.
That was part of it, probably. But she gets it. She understands it. And the best part is my mother's best advice to me was, and this was really right before she passed away. She said, just do me a favor, never do it for the money. She said, you just take care of people, do what's right, take care of everybody, make sure they have what they need. God will take care of the money. She goes, look at me and your father. She said, we had 7 children. We had no idea how we were going to afford to have 7 children. And we just took care of our neighbors and God took care of the money. So she said, just promise me, that's how you'll run the business. And I told my daughter that, and I watch her every day, and that's exactly what she does. And because of that, we do now more marketing. We are more networking and meeting a lot more people in a shorter period of time than we would if we didn't do the marketing. But probably still 80% of our business comes from referrals from our current clients or clients that might not be our clients, but know us from somebody else. And maybe they've got a long-time agent and we've said to them, be loyal, stay with that agent. They're a good agent, but they'll send one of their friends to us. So it works.
So am I right when I read this? I think I was right about this. Do you guys kind of niche out a little bit in the nonprofit sector?
Yes.
Okay. So just so you know, that's what we do. That's our niche. We dive deep into nonprofits, specifically work comp for nonprofits. So I saw that and I was like, wow, tell me about this. When did this start? How to go about? What's the reason why?
I actually I have a sales gentleman who's still with me. I think he's 82 this year. he was in a different agency, and I used to see him at all the functions. And I said, whenever you're unhappy, just come on over to my place. He's a true gentleman. He just cares about people. He's in everything for the right reason. So we got together, and he had written a couple and I had written a couple, and we just both decided that a lot of nonprofits needed our help. We really did it for that reason. And I'm going to give to charity anyway. So I might as well donate to the nonprofits that I happen to insure. But what always happens with me is we meet a nonprofit, something we never knew about. We learn all about them. We help them with their insurance program. And then I get hooked on what they're doing. And the next thing you know it, I'm on their board of directors or I'm on one of their committees. Yeah. So, but we the local nonprofits are just so valuable. I watch the niches that they take care of and part of our community that they take care of that nobody else would be taken care of if they weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And
this job allows us to fill the gaps of where their funding needs behind the scenes that's one of the joys I have of this, right? I have the resources, not wealthy, right? But you know what I mean. We have the resources. The Rough Notes listeners know what we mean, that when a charity needs $2,500 or $5,000 out of nowhere and it's emergency, it feels good that I'm one of the people they call. Let's be honest with you, right?
That's exactly it. And so what happened is that just grew, meaning we're working with this nonprofit and they're talking to one of their friends at one of their meetings and they find out that they're having a difficult time or they're just not sure about their insurance program. So they refer them to us. So now it's more, that particular part of the business is much more of a referral situation where we just get called up by people and say, hey, so-and-so told me to call you. They said you do a good job on their insurance. Can you help us out? And I just love doing them. And
I can
like
tell.
you said, I have a lot of friends who, and I told them, I'm not hanging with the real rich people, but my friends will do whatever they can. They all are in the same camp as I am, whatever we can do to help local and keep locals, okay. And a lot of my clients are different businesses. So when they have a gala or they have an outdoor event, I'll invite 15 or 20 of my friends and hopefully just get them turned on to helping that nonprofit. And then they run it with their thing and they do it too.
Jackie, Doris, about Jackie, looks like she has do you have grandchildren?
She has a 6-week-old.
A boy or girl?
A boy. In fact.
Okay. I was just curious because, it went to mom, then went to you, then went to Jackie. I'm kind of seeing a pattern here, Doris. I'm kind of seeing a woman power path here. And so it looks like Jackie and her husband have work to do then, okay? Because we need a perpetuation plan around here.
It's Jackie and her wife.
Oh, excuse me, Jackie and her wife have work to do,
and
right? They got a perpetuation plan.
She's trying to. The next one will be a daughter, and that's going to be the key.
See, that's what I said. That's exactly what I mean.
Through no conscious reasoning, we are a 16-woman agency and 2 men.
Wow.
And we've had men work for us along the way. Like it wasn't on purpose. It's just that most of the service positions in agencies, as you know, are mostly women. There are men out there. We had a gentleman who worked for us quite a while. He left the insurance business to do something else. But for the most part, the only men we ever have are really our producers. And I put ads out. That's, women answer them. So it's just kind of funny that, my mother started this agency. My dad used to go to the Big I meetings, and he would take our staff, and most agents didn't. They just went to the meeting. That was it. When I took over the business and the people, all the reps from all the different companies would come and they'd make a beeline to my dad's office. When they never say hi to anybody, the service people, they go right to my dad to talk about, how much business are you going to give us this month? And when they started coming to my office, I said, do you guys stop and see all the people out there? I said, because, they're the ones who give you the business. They're the underwriters here, not me. And we started a whole new trend where they would start coming in. But my dad would take certain like at least 2 employees to every monthly Big I meeting. And I met somebody about 4 years ago at an event. It was a vendor. And when he heard the name of my agency, and again, the original agency is EA Bonikowski Agency, Inc. EA being Edward Alexander, and my mother was Eleanor Antoinette. They just happened
Okay.
to share the same first initials.
Okay.
And
Okay.
when we started spreading out, the name Bonikowski is just long and it's hard. So we still have like a division of, but we started trading as EAB Group. Kept their initials and just as EAB Group so we could spread out a little bit.
That last name, I imagine, that's one of those that you got to be like, okay, that's tough for people to say, those things. I agree there.
But it represented honesty, integrity, and
yes,
and
it does.
If he gave us nothing else, my mother and father, they gave us a good reputation to follow. But
That's
this
fantastic.
gentleman said to me, I remember your dad. He was the only guy who always brought a couple women with him to all of our luncheons. And our staff felt like special because they always went. But he looked at me and he said, I married your mom. She was a lot smarter than I was. And he said, the women run this business. They run my office. They just make me look good. So he loved the business. He was a gregarious, kind, caring person who just loved meeting people. And he could sell insurance to a rock just because they liked him.
I notice you call yourself a risk architect.
Yes.
Is that something you've had for a while? I mean,
Well,
I believe it and I see it in my brain. I think that's exactly what it is.
That's part of the Beyond Insurance training. And again, we basically take, and just like an architect would, designing a program to fit the risk. And I told, there's a word in my company that they're not allowed to use anymore. And I still catch it every once in a while, but I caught it from the producers more than anything. And I used to hit them with a wet noodle. You're not allowed to use the word quote. Because and now we actually ask people, we'll ask them 3 or 4 predetermining questions. Do we even want to work with them? Because if I got somebody calling me up, they have a $3,000 policy and they're shopping it just to get a cheaper price. That's not my client. That's not,
right.
And I'm not a good fit for you. You just need somebody who just wants to put you on the books, do this and do that. And if I make recommendations as like carrying an umbrella policy or anything like that, and you don't want to take my recommendations, I fired probably about 20 years ago. I fired a client that was a $345,000 premium. So probably about a $40,000 revenue client. And somebody looked at me, and I'm going to excuse my French. That somebody said, "Boy, you got balls." And I said that they're costing me more than I'm making. And they're like, "What do you mean?" I go, because I'm making recommendations. I'm asking them to use contracts with snowplowers to, reduce the risk. They're not. I'm asking them to have their property managers check all their malls when they have a vacant space. They're not. There's a claim on an open, So I just went through everything and I said, we're actually chasing them down for money. They're not listening to anything we're recommending. As far as, and we're not attorneys, we're insurance agents, but I'm making insurance recommendations. And I said, as big as they are, they're gonna be that thing that really costs me a lot of money one day when they have that huge claim and whatever, and then they come back after me because they didn't listen to what I said. So
right.
we are a little bit more careful. We insure a lot of contractors. That's our other niche, as it were.
Okay.
We do nonprofits and contractors, and we do a lot of contractors, mostly mid-size, not the huge guys, but not the small guys either. So we have to do a lot of COIs because they're working for the big guys. And our contractors are good. They listen to what we say. I just wrote one last week that the previous agent had been sold to a bigger agency, and anybody who's in commercial insurance, and if they saw this policy, I can't imagine they wouldn't have done what I did, but he had 300,000 CSL on his commercial auto policy, and he's a contractor with 4 trucks on the road, a couple of trailers, a little bit of equipment, and nobody told him that he said, I just listened to whatever my agent told me.
Trying to get the lowest price.
But he wasn't even trying to get the lowest price.
No. The agent is trying to sell him the lowest price, right?
He had the same agent for a lot of years, and then that agent sold to a lot bigger agency, a lot bigger than me. And I'm looking at it going, he's been with them for a year, and that's when he said, I really don't get any service. That's why he was switching. But I said, nobody looked at this policy and said, you got to increase your coverage. Like, this is scary, especially living in New Jersey. You get sued in New Jersey, you're not getting sued for $300,000.
I can make sense. That makes sense.
So
Tell me, let's end here with your marketing. It seems like you talked about Jackie and the things she did when she came in into marketing. I know you guys have increased your 5-star reviews. You've done a lot of different types of things, internship work, all different types of stuff. This is something you said earlier, like today you feel as if your agency is growing in a different way or is a different type because of the marketing. Expand on that for me.
well, we have a fellow agent. I'm in a small agent group in New Jersey, not one of the big aggregators, but just a smaller, more select agent group in New Jersey. And one of the agents in my group who's very, very successful. I love to watch him. He's just a fabulous guy in the business. And he talked about the percentage of his budget that he spends on advertising. And of course, that caught Jackie's ear right away. And she said, you know what? We do pretty good, but we don't do good enough. So we need to have a plan. So we're doing X amount of direct. We're back to direct mail again. But we're trying to be a little bit more innovative in our direct mailing, whether we send them a little item or whatever. And we're starting to knock on doors again because we used to do that. And when I had new producers, I would make them go out with me and we'd bring a tchotchke and we would just go introduce ourselves. Not hard sell, just this is who we are. This is what we do. Just in case, if you have a great agent, stay with your agent. But if there's ever any problems or they're not reaching out to you, you need to give us a call because our people will tell you we are a great agent. And so we're starting to do that again. And we're purposely advertising in every nonprofit venue that we support. We do a full page ad and all their, and some of the ones that we don't even insure. We're just making sure that we're getting ourselves out there. But a lot of face-to-face, we sponsor a lot of events and we make sure we go to the events and sponsor them. Somebody's having a 5K. I'll go there and I'll have a table and I'll have backpacks at the end, or I'll have another item. We do women's events where we bring, and we're spending a lot more money on the promotional items. Just to get our name out there. I said, it's just, getting that logo out there and the name recognition. And that seems to be working. It works so well that a smaller agency actually was referring me a piece of business because he felt it was a little too big for him, and ended up that's probably my first. I purchased one very, very small agency years ago when his son passed away and he needed to be purchased, and he asked me if I would purchase him, and he was really tiny. But the one I just purchased, he approached me, and everybody's getting approached by everybody and their brother. I think I must get 5 solicitations a week from somebody, either an M&A broker or somebody wanting to buy me. And I'm like, we're not going anywhere. We're not, I'm not wired like the typical agent who's looking for the exit plan. I have no exit plan. I have a continuation plan, and I want that to happen. I told my daughter, I'm never quitting, and you're never firing me. I may just work for $100 a week at some point, but you're stuck with me. Yeah. And she's okay with that. She said she's okay with that.
Well, I think she is, especially as she has somebody who's a leader who's led an agency who's now on the cover of Rough Notes magazine, right? So we try to take you from the physical paper down to the digital stream where we are right now here. Wrapping up, anything you want to close with, Doris?
Well, I'm sorry that she could not join us. The intention was for her to join us today, but her son needed to be fed and a few other things, and the timing was just a little off.
For Jackie.
So, but yeah, I credit a lot of our growth to truly the women who work for me. They are A1. They are better than the average anyone at a desk. They make it happen every day. They are risk managers and risk architects. They take the time to review people's insurance. We get a lot of our referrals, not because of me and not because of Jackie, even because of them. So we're very blessed to have a good staff. I treat them with respect and appreciation, and they treat me the same way. We do a hybrid work schedule, and everybody says, "What are you, crazy? You're not getting your," and I said, they're working their tails off. My clients have never been happier, and most of them just come in 2 days a week and they work from home 3 days a week, and it works. So I really credit the growth to them, and I just am having fun on the ride.
Fantastic. I'm happy for you, and I'm glad that you were acknowledged and you're honored in this, right? And the fact of being recognized by our peers sometimes means more than anything, right? It's it's our friends, and it's our husband or our wife, but when people who know what you have to do every day and say, hey, that person should be recognized, that's just a special thing. You know what I mean?
I'm honored. I'm totally
Yeah.
honored. And again, when I just came back from the Beyond Insurance conference, and it was fabulous as always. And there's
Yeah.
agencies there that just blow me out of the water with AI. What I get to learn from that group, and what I get to share too. I share some of my things, but there's a lot of young people there that are just picking it up and running with it, and they're help. And what's nice about the Beyond Insurance is somebody just needed a market for a certain risk, and I was able to send them a market that we had just used, and he was all appreciative and said, "Could you, send me the underwriter you talked to?" And so we do those kind of things, and we're all over the country, which is nice. So we're not really competing with each other, and everybody just helps. But it's I have to go to those things twice a year because I just always need to get that extra inspiration. If you're starting to get a little tired or maybe bored, or business is business, right? It can be very aggravating some days. And you go to one of those conferences, a Beyond Insurance conference, and everything just pops back up again, and you get excited, and I'm going to attack the world again. So I just I have a lot of good outside influence, which is good for me.
Yeah, it is. I can just tell you have passion, you have love like I do for this industry. So Doris, aka D, and also tell Jackie, sorry we missed her. If you're going to have a better excuse in the world, it's that you had to feed your kid who's 6 months old, right? 6 months old. Don't
6 weeks.
Oh, 6 weeks.
Weeks.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's even different. They don't understand. Hold on a minute. Nope. That's not in their
Especially
menu.
when you're nursing, then,
Yeah, I got you. I got you. I understand. So no, thank you very much. I really do appreciate you, giving us and blessing us with your presence and helping us explain why Dave and what they saw in you guys. And this is fantastic. And I can just hear it oozing from you. I'm still so fascinated by the fact that your mother was able to do something at a time when, holy crap. I'll be honest with you. I think it's a lot easier today, but it's still not easy as a woman to actually start an agency. Let's be honest.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Be done. I'm not saying it can't. It's been done for years, but it ain't as easy as sometimes other people. We just got to be realized about that.
She's very humbling.
Thank you. Now, here's what I want to end with here, Rough Notes listeners. I want to end about women, right? It got me thinking about the fact that I have a presentation. Doris, I'm a national speaker as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the presentations I have, I go into a 15-minute segment, Rough Notes listeners, where I talk about the power of women in insurance. And I don't think we really put a box around it to really think about that. What makes insurance so great? If you're a Rough Notes listener, you think about it in your brain. What makes it? If you really think about everything, at the end of the day, let's just say it's renewable or income, right? Residual income. I mean, the fact that we get paid to do something over and over. Now, we still have work to do, but it's a consistent business plan. It's not selling shoes and we got to hurry up and sell a bunch of more shoes next month, right? So as you know, let's just say it's residual income. Let's go back to what Doris said. We know hers is 2 out of 16 or whatever were men and the others were women, something around there. But Rough Notes listeners, that's the average agency. I got 11 people in my office and 3 of them are men, right? That's just the way that it is. So this tells me that women are the greatest thing in an industry because they're the ones who are controlling the residue or the continuing income. So if they're managing the renewals, what would we do without them if we think that the renewals are the greatest part of our industry? I've said it once and I'll say it again. And I was really close this year, for good or bad, not being political. I believe that there will be in the next 200 years more women presidents than there are men. I know that's hard to grasp, but that will happen. Society is changing. It's been changing for a long time ago, right? It had to do with the fact that when we were cavemen and cavewomen, I needed her to watch the kids. She needed me to go get food. Today, Jackie can breastfeed on her own. There's a store down the road, and she got her own business. She doesn't need somebody. We start to look at the way of emotional intelligence being one of the most important things in our society today. Sharing, caring, the things that you heard coming from Doris, multitasking. These are women traits. We don't have to take that wrong as men. What we need to do is we just need to recognize that some of our weaknesses sometimes are being exacerbated and shown by the people who work in our very office. And so that's where I go when I see the women of insurance. And if you hear my presentation, you understand that I was raised by a single woman. I was raised by a woman who was left on her own when I was in 8th grade and never had a job in her life. She had to raise 3 kids on welfare. She was on it for 3 years and got her RN degree, and she put us through school. And I remember her telling me and my sisters, you never let somebody else depend on somebody else. And that's the truth, right? I believe in women. I believe in the things they do. I'm not perfect, right? I'm not trying to say that I'm like some god to women. That's not what I'm saying. All right. I talked to my wife. She'll definitely tell you completely different, right? But I just want you to know that, Rough Notes listeners, when you listen to Doris and when you heard that story of her mom and you listen to her and you hear the story of Jackie and you know that's the continuation plan, that's real. That's real. Not only is it real coming from her, that's really hard. We live in a society that doesn't always make things balanced. But did you hear that come from her one time? Nope. That's what we do in this insurance industry. We're independent. We do what's best for our clients. We do what's best for our family. And we try to create a customer experience that, is second to none. Hey, Doris, once again, thank you very much for your time. This has been Jason Cass, and she is Doris Zampella. I'm sorry about that. I'm not even going to lie to you. I forgot the last name for a minute. I was so on a roll. So sorry about that, Doris. Doris,
Jason, no worries.
And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for the audience too.